All right, here we are back with Tri Talk.
Back with Tri Talk. It's April 9th. The year, yeah, boys, it's still 2024. Welcome aboard, everybody. You're listening to the Crushing Iron podcast. This is episode 761.
Yep. I was just joking, but is there? I think there's a podcast called Tri Talk, isn't there?
I'm sure there is. And I'm sure Triathlon, like, the longer you listen to our show, they're like, these guys even talk about triathlon? I mean, we do every single episode, but it's definitely not, like, it's a guy that, like, whenever I go on road trips or drive for camps or races or stuff, even like down to Nashville this last week, I'll put, like, my AirPods in on one side and listen to, like, just a podcast. And they are 100% all in.
What, Tri Talk?
Everything. Oh, yeah. All Tri Talk all the time. And which I can't do, even as, you and I live it and breathe it in every aspect of our life. And so I take some of it and I'm like, man, like, this is it's a lot. It is a whole lot. But you know what?
No, I get it, man. My favorite podcast out there, other than this one, is Never Stop Trying.
Oh, is it?
No.
I was about to say, I was going to say this is the second time in 24 hours I've had to ask you how you were feeling. Last night you were cheering for Purdue, and today you're telling me you're listening to a podcast. I never would have thought. Yeah, but listen, kudos to them, because I will say, like, as much as I love the fact that we don't ever really have guests, because frankly, it's just not, it kind of ruins the flow. I have a enormous amount of respect for the people that have a guest on every single episode, because I can't imagine the level of, like, effort you have to go, like, to put in to get a guest for every single show, and then how, like, far in advance in the future you have to book these people, and then you got to hope that you can get them on, like, a regular routine. So props to them.
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
They fill a huge need in a space that we definitely have no desire to fill. So again, kudos to those people. But it was a pretty busy racing weekend. You had Oceanside 70.3, which was always kind of the official, unofficial, but pretty much official kickoff to the North American Ironman Series, which was a great race. I'll talk a little bit about that more in a minute before we go into the Q&A. And then you had Texas 70.3. You got the PTO 100 race coming up this weekend in Singapore. It's just full on, and I love it. It's hard to believe that next month is May, which is just the races just fall like every other weekend. So it was nice to have the tracker going. Hopefully everyone went out and had a fantastic weekend, whether you were spectating, racing, or training. Hope you had a good time. It's your first time tuning in today. Welcome. We appreciate you giving us your time. We know you have quite a lot of options in the triathlon podcast universe and just podcasts in general. Time is valuable, so we appreciate you tuning in today. We cover it all. We do swim, bike, and run specific podcasts. We do race recaps and also a lot of race previews. But for the most part, Mike and I, as coaches, athletes, best friends, we just sit back, relax, have an open, honest discussion about what we're going through in life, not just as human beings, but also as coaches and athletes ourselves. Mike and I work with a wide range of athletes all across the globe, from beginner level triathletes in the very first 5K or sprint triathlon, all the way up through elite level amateurs trying to get back to world championships, and everyone in between from all over the globe. We'll use the feedback loop we have with them and Training Peaks emails, text messages, and the like to drive the discussion of the day. We also like to utilize our Facebook group, like we will today. You can search that, Crushing Iron Group. Answer one simple question and let's right in. Fantastic community, awesome people, and a fantastic resource in a sport that is oftentimes way overcomplicated and way too confusing to do on your own. It is a safe, actionable space to get good quality information from seasoned veterans, hopefully allowing you to avoid some of the pitfalls and mistakes we have made along the way. And like I said before, like we'll do today, we go in about every 3 to 6 weeks, do a bit of Q&A and take some questions from the community, take the pulse of the triathlon community at large, and do our best to answer every single one of those questions on our podcast. And we can do that because we don't fill up time with sponsors or ads, but we do have an agenda, and that's to keep you happy and healthy in your endurance sports journey.
Yeah, congratulations to the new college basketball dynasty, UConn.
Yeah.
They are a dynasty, man.
I totally agree with you.
They've won 6 in the last 24 years.
Yeah, and they are 6-0 in NCAA championship games.
Wow.
Which is unbelievable. Which to me is just unreal. I mean, it was, the game wasn't, I mean, I didn't watch the whole thing, obviously, but I figured UConn was going to win by double digits, and I think a lot, even Purdue fans that I was texting with, they're like, "Yeah, we don't play our game, we're probably going to lose by double digits." That's how good they are, because Purdue was also that good. With a player like Edey that could, he dropped 35 last night, and they weren't even close. It really is unbelievable what they've been able to do and what their coach has been able to do in the program. It's just, and I love it on a. I mean, I'm not a Big East basketball fan. I don't, we were talking before the cast that, I mean, I didn't really do much about it. I mean, I didn't track much of it last year because Tennessee was, subpar, and then we choked again this year. But listening to Hurley talk, I have a very high level of appreciation for coaches that do it like he does it. And they're not the Kentuckys. They're not even the Kansas. They're not the front running, like, teams like you see in even college football, like the Alabamas and the teams you're like you don't expect them to win. They just, like the Dallas Cowboys, Notre Dame, like the ones that like think they're going to win it all every single year and act like that. And UConn, they just like, we just go about our business, straight up kicking everyone's ass for the last quarter of a century, and like still no one talks about them. It really is just kind of fascinating, that whole thing, and just but how well built that program is when you have like that level of success and excellence. And it's still like somewhat under the radar.
Oh yeah, 100%, man. I wonder. I'm curious, like, because I was thinking, that's one of my favorite sporting stuff or events is the college basketball, and I was thinking on my way to my friend's house last night about watching this. I wonder how many people that listen to this podcast actually watch that game. Do you think it's like 10%, 5%?
Man, that's a tough one.
I'd be curious to know. Maybe somebody should put a poll in
Somebody put right under Mike's favorite cereal.
Yeah.
That's a good question. I would like to see the numbers on that.
Yeah, because I just don't think a lot of people really care. We're talking about it, but it is what it is.
Yeah, and they definitely don't. But listen, I mean, just like we use like triathlon and use a lot of like, metaphors and analogies for life. It's the same thing with all sports, right? And I think it translates a lot. And it really is just like really, really impressive. And to lead into that, obviously I was talking about before we get into our questions today, because we had a lot of good questions. Like the performances we saw this last weekend, and I for one, I predicted Sam Long and Taylor Knibb to win Oceanside. Sam Long came in second, Taylor Knibb got first. I've got to give, and I don't do this very often because he drives me nuts in a lot of areas, but he is the typical age group pro triathlete. Lionel Sanders, amazing race, really amazing performance, and couldn't be happier for him. And I'll eat a little bit of crow because I didn't think he would ever win like another big 70.3 again. But listening to his post race talk, it's always interesting to see. And I also have to say, like, it's always cool to see the top two professional is on the men's side are both dads, crushing it, and fairly new fathers, and, balancing things. And even if, they're not the ones staying at home doing so much of the, as much of the caretaking, like it's still a huge amount of stress. But I also think it gives like an enormously different perspective on life. And, I got to give a huge amount of credit to seeing what Lionel did. And I got to say, I'm both optimistic about what he can do this year, but also fearful because on one hand, if he had gotten second place, he probably would have reinvented the wheel and like gone back to being like swimming twice a week and going vegan again and training like a totally opposite way. But he got a first, so he obviously knows what he's doing has been working. It was a okay field, definitely wasn't a deep field. But he's still like his performance was unreal. So now my hope for him is that he's just stays the course. But I think a lot of people know this, but he used to be a drug addict. It was way back. And one of the first stories I ever read about him. So he's got like an addictive personality. I think that's been part of his like his kryptonite is he goes way all in like a certain direction. And so my hope for him is that he just stays the course and doesn't overcook himself by thinking, which is a lot of triathletes, no matter what, this worked and I was great. A little bit more and I'll be greater. which is something that I can totally see him doing. And you got to give a guy across. He had, I think, the best swim in his entire career. The best swim in his entire career, showing how huge the swim is, but also showing that even at his age, as a professional, you can still get better in the swim. And he did. He put a lot of work in it, I think, from everything I read. And Brian Snell keeping me up to date on all things Lionel Sanders. So you got to give credits where credit's due. And I hope he continues on this path, because he did. He seemed like post-race, he seemed like a totally different dude than who I've listened to in the past. So, again, kudos to him.
Yeah, congrats, Lionel.
Yeah, and then last thing I'll say about the pro racing this weekend is, and you can at me all you want, and you can slide into my DMs and hate on me, which I don't have. Taylor Knibb is the best triathlete on the planet, and it's not even close. It's not even close. She won by double-digit minutes and didn't look like she was even trying. She came out of the water in the front pack. And did you watch any of the race on Outside TV?
I'm sorry, I didn't.
It's all right. No, you don't need to. That's what I'm here for. Watching her blow. When I mean blow, I mean it looked like she was passing age groupers the way she was passing some of the better professional male triathletes on the bike. It was like they were standing still. One of the guys she passed in the first 50K has won a professional 70.3. I mean, it was unbelievable to watch how, like, her cycling ability is unreal. And so to have, like, everyone spent, this is actually the first question on we'll do today with the Q&A, but I won't leap into it yet, but it's a good segue. In the last 2 or 3 years, everyone's been all about hopping on the Norwegian method and the Norwegian train, and now you got only one of them really performing at a super high level in this whole method that wanted to change, like, age group training and all the different age group athletes that have degrees in psychology and business administration and PE and economics, going out and buying lactate strips to try to perform something that scientists even struggle with sometimes. And you got a woman like Taylor Knibb, who not only has an Olympic medal, but is the most dominant 70.3 woman I've ever seen in my entire life. And then she goes into Kona last year on like 6 weeks of prep, not even 6 weeks of prep, and gets fourth. I mean, it's what she's doing. She's the most, like, she's unbeatable at a 70.3, and probably the PT 100 distance, and will be eventually once his Olympic cycle is over. It's been unbelievable to watch her. And again, like, just to watch her blow by the men like they were standing still was kind of mind-boggling. And she is on both sides, male and female. She is, without question, it's not even close, the best triathlete on the planet. Wow. And she's an American, which I love.
Good for her, man. She's got skill, talent.
And she's humble, and she's young, and she's got, I mean, it really is. And she's got 7-8 more years of her career. And it's really is amazing to see. So yeah, that was fun to watch this week. And that actually, like I said before, will jump us into our questions. The first one was from, let me see, Josh Venus. What is the biggest new trend that the pros are implementing that you can see the average age group athlete being able to apply? This can be anything, swim, bike, and run. So it's funny that that's what the first question, because I was actually thinking about this in my drive to the pool this morning. So I'm talking about Taylor Knibb, and I also referenced, like, everyone's new, not anymore, but everyone's obsession with, like, the quote unquote Norwegian method and intensity control and double threshold days and lactate strips. And that was the big thing when Gustav Beaton and Christian Bloomfield were blowing her body out of the water. That was it. And then you got Taylor Knibb, who I did also see, she parted ways with her coach, Ian O'Brien, who's more of a short course guy. Is a short course coach. And she's been training under a new coach. She just hasn't said anything about it. And her new coach is Dan Lorrange. I mean, which is, to me, that's like one of the most fascinating pieces about this whole thing now is Dan Lorrange. Okay, so Coach John Ferdino, who is arguably the greatest male triathlete of all time. Now he coaches Annie Haug, Lucy Charles Barkley, and Taylor Knibb. Not arguably, the 3 best long course female athletes on the planet, which is one, just fascinating from a coaching dynamic to like, and how the 3 of them, like, hey, like we have the same coach, we're all going to line up to do the same race at some point this year.
Right.
And like, and how a coach can, separate their, like, to just like totally disconnect and not have any feeling about who wins. Right. And then when you're putting in training, like he's been, so Annie Haug is, Ironman world champion, Lucy Charles Barkley, Ironman world champion, Taylor Knibb, 70.3 world champion, a future Ironman world champion, I have no doubt. And so to open up your screen, like in Training Peaks, if you're that dude, yeah. and to be able to separate what you give each person, to me, is one of the most unbelievable things in coaching. And then they all line up, and so it's really just fascinating. One, that he can do that. So he also is one of the head performance guys for professional men's cycling teams. So the guy is just an all around amazing coach that really no one ever talks about. And you see a guy like this, and if you listen to him talk, and I've listened to probably like 10, 15 interviews he's done, and the guy, and so in order to back to Josh's question about what to take and age groupers can apply, is to, I honestly think the biggest thing is stop getting so fucking distracted. And if you listen to him talk, and you listen to a lot of coaches talk, and again, we're referencing like the Norwegian thing, everyone's trying to, go back and do different things and totally because these two guys were having success, not about the ones that didn't have success, and what's the most applicable way for most people to get better. And if you hear Dan Lorraine talk, he talks about the way he periodizes their athletes, that's all pretty simple. Like, yes, they use lactate measurement, do things, but they do a lot of big gear work. They do a lot of stuff at threshold. They do, they do race specific stuff. It's nothing like earth shattering. And listening to him talk, he doesn't give off that vibe that like I'm the smartest person in the room. I was even listening to a podcast he did where he like opened up and he just like he questioned if he was even good enough to do this anymore. That guy. And he was just he thought about stepping away from the sport. He was wondering if he was even good enough. And then he had a lot of like other coaches reaction was, hey, just stay the course. You're doing the right thing. And so to me, it's what I can see, and from my experience, obviously as a coach, but also as an athlete, and what I see most age group athletes doing, and the biggest mistakes that they make that they could learn from and not make from professional athletes, is to stay the course with what they know is working. And back to Lionel Sanders, right? He has been his own worst enemy the last 8 years because he's bounced between coaching, self-coaching, not getting coached, having advisors, having coaches. This is working. Let's reinvent the wheel. He's been the yo-yo. He's the roller coaster, which is why he's all age group triathletes' favorite pro triathlete, because he's so relatable, because he is acted for such a long period of time like an age group athlete, trying brand new things before a race day, totally reinventing the wheel, like all these different things. And that resonates with age group athletes because they get so distracted by either I had a bad race, let's reinvent the wheel, or this went great, more is better. Or I read this article in the top 10 things that this Olympic athlete's doing over in China. I think we should do that. And just to remember how long it takes to get really, really good. And the more you change up what you're doing in training, you're adding on, in my experience, you're adding months onto where you are as an athlete in terms of your performance every single time you decide to change. Because a lot of athletes find themselves in this yo-yo space in training. So again, I don't think it's anything tech related. I don't think it's anything to do, with bottles down the front of their kit or race wheels or tire pressure, or, I think it's just old fashioned work and consistency and not getting distracted with what everyone else is doing. And I honestly think most pro triathletes would say the same thing, because they always say that, I know this is the boring answer, but it's just consistency. And the more consistent you are, right, things are going to get boring, things are going to be kind of monotonous, but if it works, it works. And so I think, like, going back again with great examples like, Lionel Sanders, who's yo-yos back and forth, and now he's found himself a guru. Taylor Knibb, who's new coach, is Dan Lorrange. He didn't have to reinvent the wheel. He just does what works all the time, and it's nothing like secretive. It's not we are just that much smarter than everyone else. It's just we just do it consistently, and I think that's something age group athletes can never hear enough, especially given like where we are this time of year when you're either, had this, a text message, earlier this week about an athlete who's been battling a lot of illness and injuries, just random niggles that have popped up. Like, I feel so behind. And I'm like, you can't worry about what you haven't done. You got to worry about what you can do today and how you might be able to do your best tomorrow. And, this feeling of behind, or when athletes ask you, as a coach, like, do you think I'm on track? And I'm like, I don't know what track we're on. And I don't know what track that you thought we would be on, but we're doing really well. You've been super consistent. So we are getting as good as we can get. Now what that also doesn't mean is we don't know what track you're going to be on in 2 weeks, right? Because life happens. And that's just, I think, a perfect, reminder for everyone is that, life is ever changing. And the illusion of perfection and the illusion of that every week is going to be a perfect week is just setting yourself up for failure. So yeah, I mean, I think when it terms to the biggest new trend, it's not a new trend at all. To me, it's just flat out being consistent and staying the course and not being distracted from, with new shiny objects like most age groupers are.
Yeah. Boy, this one really hits home for me. I mean, what you said is, let's just go back to UConn last night. They probably just worked harder than most teams. You know what I mean? They worked at it and they had good players and they just kept going. There's something mentally that was flipping in there. I think everybody's always looking for it's sort of like Bill Belichick or, he's this genius kind of guy or whatever, but I don't really know if that's I just feel like that pops into triathlon all the time as like all these new methods and all these kind of things. And whenever I think about myself, we've talked about this before about how quote unquote, most of us underachieve, including me. And I know it comes down to simple things like I got to bike more, and I just you've built programs way back in the day. And honestly, I still kind of go by those, I lay out things and I try to stay in the ballpark, but I know if I did the work and I'm really obviously huge on recovery and feeling good and everything like that. Cause I know if I can go into a tough workout feeling good and feeling strong, I'm going to get more out of it. And those types of things to me are just the bread and butter and that make everything, the sandwich is nothing without that. And you got to kind of just stay the course and just keep working. It's like there is no overnight success stories. There's no get rich quick schemes. Those types of things are just so ingrained in our society now. But I just don't think that people see. It's like fans will just continually bitch about why isn't this guy playing or this and that, and it's like they're probably not working in practice, man. It's simple. It's just like you're not earning the time. And if you can go out and I think it's really, I was going to ask what Lorrange, how much different you think those training plans are between his top three females? I mean, you think they're super different with all these different angles about you know what I mean? It's
I bet you they are 90% the same.
Yeah.
I mean, and I bet they're not. I mean, besides a few small variations, I bet they're, because he's even said this is the exact cycle we go through for the whole year. So like in terms of how he periodizes his athletes, it's the exact same for the whole year. And then you do a periodization from one race to the next, and you start over. One race to the next, and you start over. The exact same. He's like, and he's telling everyone this. He's like, this is not rocket science.
Mm-hmm.
So I guarantee you they're nice. And if you listen to like Paulo Souza, one of a really unbelievable ITU coach, Joe Filiol, one of the best ITU coaches, and I reference with them because they have squads that like where you got 15, very similar to what Dan Lorrange has with the women now. They have a huge range of athletes in their training squad that are all competing against each other every 6 weeks at the highest level, and they train together. And they've even said flat out that like what we give them is 90 to 95% the same. Some things are a little bit different. One less interval for Bobby, one more for Tim. But that doesn't mean that they're getting better treatment, right? The swim sets are almost exactly the same. And they're the same. There's no secret sauce in it. And it's funny to hear you talk about like going back, because I did that like, was it 4 weeks ago? I was going back and looking through like, some of the training blocks that I've created from, you said it like over 10 years ago.
Yeah.
That I have in Training Peaks and the workouts. And what I realized is that now they just look prettier. They just look, I'll pre-build them, I'll put in like, the graph, and so it's like automatic, and like, that's pretty much it. I even like pulled one out. It's funny you say this because I even pulled 2 out that were some of the first sessions I ever wrote out back in Training Peaks. This is, 10 years. I was still drinking. I think I probably did it on my couch out off of Old Hickory Boulevard after a couple Crystal Light and vodkas, and used one of them last week and used another progression of it this week with an athlete doing Ironman Texas. And he did it this last week, and I told him to hide his Garmin. He was like, this is the best bike ride I've had in months. Oh, and man. It's just, and it was all by feel. And I think and I'm guilty of it too. Like you always think that this extra and athletes want this too, because it's expected now, right? Is, well, why can't you pre-build my swims? And I want every run pre-built, and I want every run because it does. I'm not gonna lie, it looks great in Training Peaks or whatever you use. It looks pretty, but it's fucking the same. It really is. It's all the same. And you said one other thing there was a famous quote. Not a famous quote, not at all. That's a lie. It's not famous at all. But I heard a quote a few years ago from a coach, and he said, one of the things I hate the most hearing from commentators when you have like a sprint to the finish is, I guess they just wanted it more. And he said that's the biggest lie you can ever tell somebody, is that you can want something and get a result. The reason the person won, the other person lost, because they worked harder in the months leading up to it. They were fitter. They were stronger. They could hold their speed longer for a longer period of time. It's not that he just said, hey, I'm going to want this more, and then your body gets in a different gear. It's about work. So you can want something. You can want whatever. You can want anything. But if you're not going to work for it, good luck. And I think that's just something that we have and I do. We have, it is a somewhat famous quote, carry water, chop wood. Simple. But we are no longer attracted to simplicity. We are that doesn't get people on the couch anymore. Although, I would argue that if every single person on this planet would carry water and chop wood for 30 minutes a day, we'd all be better off from a health standpoint. But it's just, it doesn't, hey, just, what we really need to do this next 2 weeks is just do some good aerobic work. And that's not exciting. That's not going to get me off the couch, coach. That's not exciting. I read it daily from athletes. This is just kind of boring. Okay, well, pick up badminton. Go get your ass handed to you. Do something that's a little more exciting. But that's part of it, and that's part of getting better. So you can, and you have to have this conversation sometimes with athletes who want to be what I call intertrained. So they want more entertainment when they train. That's fine. If you want to be entertained, we can do that, and it'll be close enough. It won't be the best thing we can do, but it's close enough. But do you want to be more excited with your race result, or more excited that you have more, different ADD inducing, intervals in your bike session today that are just for show? There is no dough that is just for show. What do you want? Most of them would say, can I have both?
Yeah, right.
Can I have both? What it is? It is, yeah, I mean, you just got to work hard. And there's no, in a sport that is, we always talk about, sometimes way overcomplicated and way too confusing. We do that to ourselves because there's so many things out there to get distracted with and to, like going back to, I was thinking about this in the pool this morning as I was swimming. I swam probably like one of the most boring sets you can possibly imagine today. I swam 7 600s on 30 seconds rest, high zone 2. That was it.
Mm-hmm.
So boring. I mean, like, no, just repetitive. You know how long it's going to be. Just super boring, repetitive. So, I was thinking about that, and I was going back to, when you swim those long intervals, in the pool, your brain always like tends to wander. And I was going back to like, because I was being objective and trying to wrap my around about more of an objective approach in Texas. And if I'm being totally honest about where I am right now, I got really very limited to no shot in beating my 10:30, whatever it is, 10:34 of Arizona. And then I was continuing to have this conversation. So this is back 9 years ago. And my training for that was printed off on a sheet of paper with no power meter. And I only went by heart rate on the run, never by pace, just by heart rate. And on the bike, it was totally by feel. But I just trained a lot. And some of my longest runs were the most boring effing runs ever on the treadmill. I was going back to school at the time, and I was going like through like flashcards. I was taking kinesiology, and I was going through flashcards and trying to memorize things. I would be on the treadmill for like 2 hours. The most boring thing in the world, and it's my best result to date. and so the solution isn't fancier things or power meters or different training. The solution was, I trained my ass off from like July all the way to November. Like I did monthly 70.3 that year in July, took like 2 or 3 weeks off, and then got back to work and probably had the best 3 months of training I've ever had in my one of the best like blocks I've ever had. And it was nothing spectacular. And it was all the same shit that you just talked about. Like some of the blocks I wrote like way, way, way back in the day.
Right.
That's what I. And the consistency, and I tell some of our new coaches that all the time, is like, listen, consistency gets your athlete 90% of the way, but it's getting them to be consistent and getting them to be consistent work. That's what gets you home. And it's just, it can't be understated. And I know that's probably the most boring answer that I could possibly give in terms of like, all these, they're using, they're drinking ketones every 5 miles, and they've, doing a periodized, carbohydrate diet, and they've got these new swim skins and bike helmets. And no, that's just, they just, none of it matters unless you work hard. And so, yeah, work hard. And if you want to get better, work smarter.
It's just interesting, man. Sorry, I can't let it drop yet. It's just, because you look back at those plans that you wrote, and I would argue that, because I do this with I've been writing for the last 15 years, a lot, just randomly, whatever, journaling and stuff like that. And every once in a while, I'll land on something that I wrote like 15 years ago, and I'm like, damn, that was pretty good, And now you think we need to do, like, I used to write in a Starbucks like every night almost, and they had no internet, and I would just write. You know what I mean? And it would just, I'd pump out like 10 single space pages a night or something like that. And I was just in a zone. And now whenever I sit down to write, and I just did it this morning, you go into Pages or, on Mac, and they've got a template, and they want you to put it in a book already. You know what I mean? Like, and it's like, yeah, this is better. I can write a book here. And I've got about 50 of those started. It's like, I'm not doing the work. And back in the day, my best racing was always done on chrono with your old plans. And I would just hit restart or reset or lap or whatever, and try to remember the bike workout, and just get in the zone with it and forget half of it. And it was never recorded. but I knew I was doing the work.
But if you didn't remember it exactly, then you missed some of the stimulus, Michael.
Well, that's the thing, right? Yeah, you got to see the numbers and the results, and I just think we get distracted by that.
I totally 100% agree with you,
because my workouts now, man, I'll look at them sometime and be like, I underperformed. But back then, I never thought that. I just knew I was working to my best of my ability.
Yeah, it's like, yeah. We'll get to the next question in a minute, but as I was yesterday, I'm just not thinking. So yesterday, I didn't train at all because I got up early Sunday morning, ran, then drove back to Kansas. So just shit, my legs were shelled. So I took the day off, and I got through them with work, and I was like, all right, now I got to write out my next, write out my training for this week and my training for next week. Because I'm only going to take like a 5 or 6 day taper going to Texas, because frankly, I just don't need that much. I need some more fitness. And I wrote out my 10 or 11 day block at least 4 times, trying to like figure out a way to make it like really crazy, like just crazy intuitive, like, I was trying different, like back to backs and different.
So you could go back and say, I came up with something brilliant.
Yes, you're totally right. I was like, maybe I can like squeeze this out. And I erased them all. I erased them all. And then I got back like, what am I going to gain in the next 2 weeks? Really not much. What do I need to do? I need to, do some hotter temp stuff. But so I ended up, my 2 long rides are like ones that I made up like 6 years ago. And I was like, you just need to keep it simple, because the most important thing you're doing now is just get the work done. And it doesn't need to be fancy, because you're not going to reinvent the wheel. It's just going to put more pressure on it. You just need to get back and do what you need to do to get this, to get this accomplished. And when you're talking about the chrono, when I started to get, I did this at one point when I started to get a little too attached to my devices, I mailed my Garmin to a friend at the time. And I said to Season Kaminsky, and I said, keep this for 2 weeks. I don't think I mailed it. I may have just like dropped it off her house. I was like, keep this for 2 weeks. I'm going to go chrono. Riding the trace, riding in the lab, running some on the track, running outside. I was like, I'm getting way too attached, either from what I want to do or comparing myself to what I've done. And neither one of them are doing me any favors. And it is. There's, it is. And that's what, we're now, it's like expected for every session. And again, it's one of those traps and one of those things that I try to communicate as best I can, and as softly as I can, but isn't always soft, I'm sure, to athletes. Is just like, who gives a fuck? Just do the work. The rest will happen. And that's what the coaches take care of. The coaches take care of the icing, the coaches take care of the sprinkles. You just take care of the cake. You just do the work. Just do the work. And if you miss a mark, you miss a mark. But you didn't miss a mark. You just threw it out in the middle of nowhere, swinging a piñata, and all of a sudden you missed, and you thought that was supposed to be somewhere else. You go to the work. And again, like that's not the fancy. The answer is always work. It's always do the work. The answer is always do the work. And then once you've done all the work you can do, then it's about, what shoes do I wear? What aero helmet? What wetsuit? What bike wheels? But if you haven't put the effort into the work, then the other stuff is just distracting you and frankly just trying to get you to feel better about what you haven't done. Because that's what most people do. They spend more time researching the best aero helmet or dropping $900 in a wetsuit they'll never even practice in than going to the pool extra times. Because that's work. I'd rather just, buy some fancy stuff. And that gets you nowhere. And so, yeah. So going back and being old and crotchety, if you want to know what, you get the biggest takeaway you could get from professional athletes, is to work harder and be more consistent.
Yeah, I think you make a great point there, because the more consistent you are, the more you sort of have earned those devices and things of that nature. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like I got a little confession here. I've been riding with Power a little bit lately.
Excuse me. Hold on a second.
There's another one for you.
Dude, you're a changed man. Next thing you know, you're going to be taking hot baths.
But yeah, I know, right? But what I've been doing is like what's helping me realize is that I don't think I've been working hard enough, with my effort. It's just kind of recalibrated like what is real to me a little bit. Because when we used to ride the trace and I'd go out to the lab or whatever, we just hammer it, I knew I was busting up.
And you'd look over at me and you go, "Hey, what power are you pushing right now?"
Yeah.
It's just like, I'll go, "Okay, that sounds about right." And then you keep going.
I know, that was the thing. And now I'm riding through like a retirement community. I'm like, man, I don't know if I'm really getting after it as much as I used to. So I'm just kind of looking at it and seeing it. But I think, I don't want to sound like I'm completely against that shit. But I think that when we use it, sort of intermittently in our brains, that's when it has a negative effect, I believe. It's like, oh, shit, man. I pay attention to this today, but like I haven't for the next, like, you know what I mean? It's like one day you just pick out of the random and you're like, oh man, I'm sucking or whatever. And I don't know. I just feel like it's a tool. It's not something you should always depend on, because the work, man.
It is. We can finally get on to another one. And we'll finish the rest of these off on Thursday. Josh Heckard. Other than just more time, what would you recommend for getting better at bike handling? Where I live, most roads don't have shoulders, and the ones that do are pretty busy. So that's a great question. Two things that I would recommend. One is if you can find somewhere to mountain bike. I just had this experience with an athlete that I've been coaching for the last 4 or 5 years, and they just started mountain biking this last off season. Something that we talk about, I think, every off season is get on a mountain bike. If you can. Doesn't need to be hilly. Doesn't need to be like, some black diamond, super crazy, Xterra World Championship course, with rocks and it's just one, being on your bike outside, but it's just totally different handling. And they even said they just did Oceanside, which to me is a pretty technical course and a hard course. And he said, I can totally tell my mountain biking paid off this off season. I was rarely, if ever, feathering the brakes on any of the descents. And he gained time. He gained time. And again, that's not going back to the previous question. Nothing fancy. Wasn't his race wheels. I'm going to go ahead and go on a limb and say his bike handling saved him a lot more time than his aero helmet, his tri-suit, and his race wheels combined.
Oh, God. Yeah.
Because Starkey even said that on the podcast with him years and years ago. He said, like on a course like Wisconsin, the amount of time you can save by corner and actually going back to the Dan Lorrange that we talked about, he said one of the first things he not Dan Lorrange, who was it? Bjorn Giesman. He was talking about one of the first things he said he told Patrick Lange to do when he started working with him was that we need to work on your bike handling. So he went out and he'd ride with all these professional cyclists in Germany, and all he did was try to follow their line and learn what lines to take, because that's you gain so much time and you save power because you're not having to get back up to speed, right? And so I know that he gained a significant amount of time by knowing how to corner, and taking corners with speed and not having to feather the brakes, right? Going from 35 to 30. And so that's one, right? Mountain biking, and it's just fun. It's just totally fun. To me, it's just like trail running. You get stronger, you get better, you get faster, you get fitter. Take the miles per hour off, take the distance off, because an hour on the mountain bike you might get like 7 miles. It's definitely going to make you feel good about your speed. Same with trail running. You'll trail run for like 30 minutes. You're like, man, I've probably gone 17 miles. And you're like 2.2. So if you struggle with that, again, just take the time off. But that's number one. Mountain biking is a great thing to do. And if you can't do that, you don't have that anywhere close to you, or you don't have the budget to get a mountain bike, or even just taking out any bike that you can on mountain bike trails, then hop on some rollers. And you can get, no one uses rollers anymore because, you can't, they're not tech savvy. But a good set of rollers, and you can start off with, like, most people start off by just putting them in their doorway. That way, if you start to like fall off, you can just lean against the door and prop yourself back up. But those are my two tri-tips for getting better at bike handling.
Tri-tips. Man, obviously I agree with that because I love mountain biking. I was thinking about this, like Wisconsin course for me. I think I save a lot of time out there because I'm a bike handler, and I try to express those types of thoughts that you were just saying to people, whether it's momentum or all these little things. Like we used to ride at the lab, and it was just an oval, and like would always go into those corners and just try to find the right lines and to be going as fast as I can around the corner in arrow, just trying to do shit like that all the time. And I just think that stuff is so underestimated, man. Like coming out of corners and getting over hills. Those things add up big time. I think they might even add up more than I think for me, because I'm probably not as great a bike shape as I should be usually. And I think that I can almost fudge it a little bit because of, I was fortunate enough to get into mountain biking when I was young. And like bombing hill, just like the lack of fear on a lot of stuff and different situations and seeing things ahead of, like that's one of the biggest things for me is when I notice when I'm riding with people who haven't ridden a lot, they're looking way too close. They're looking at the ground or whatever. And I'm already like 8 people up in the line looking at what they're doing and shit like that. And you kind of have it's just a sort of sense of what's going on around you at the moment, but you got to be always looking at what's coming and stuff like that. And the same goes for corners and whatever it is ahead of you. It's like I'm preparing for that shit way ahead. I think it's just kind of like driving too, where you really have to be aware of what's going on way out in front of you. And, sort of mentally preparing for, like maybe it's a bad stretch of road or whatever. You're kind of setting up your line way ahead of time and things like that. So I don't really, I think mountain biking is probably the best way to do it. But, just even, we all want to get out and ride long, straight stretches of road to get the time up. But ride neighborhoods and ride corners and safe neighborhoods or whatever. But like just ride around blocks and shit like that and kind of think about what you're doing and not have to, worry about your average speed all the time, but just really work on those kind of things, because coming out of a corner, you should be going faster rather than having to step back on it. You set it up before you get there and then you kind of get through it. And like that alone with a course with a lot of turns on it, man, that's 10 minutes.
Yeah. And it keeps your variability index down because you're not being so surgy.
Right. That's exactly it.
You can't underestimate that. Next question from Adeli Shyam. I think I pronounced that right. If I didn't, it's on me because I'm terrible at stuff like that. So apologies. Other than just swim more, which before I read the rest is, I'm not going to harp on both you and Josh, but it's funny that we just talked about doing more work, and the last 2 questions were other than just more time, and the other one is other than just swim more. It's like, tell me anything besides more swimming and more cycling to help me. Tell me something different. What are small tweaks to swim form that can help with shaving off a few minutes when swimming open water at 70.3s? Sometimes I just think about arm cadence and it shaves off time. Sometimes I think about my body like a board on my body like a board on a push on the top half to bring my legs up. True. What are your thoughts on small tweaks to form that can actually make the difference versus doing more yardage? Coming from a swimmer with limited time and trying to make the best of each practice swim. So, great question. I mean, this is when we get a lot, and I have a lot of thoughts there. I mean, the biggest thing, first of all, and it was everyone's favorite answer, it depends on what your weakness is, because I could give you 2 points on what to focus on, and if you already got those nailed down, then you're not going to get a ton better, right? If I said don't cross over and you don't cross over, you're not going to get any time because you already don't do that flaw. One thing that I would caution, maybe not caution is the right word, just to be something aware of in the pool, as we've started to do a lot more of this with athletes that I work with in the last few weeks, is more intensity control in the pool and forcing them to slow down, is giving them more body awareness. Because a lot of athletes, especially adult onset swimmers who didn't start swimming till later on in life, again, they automatically think that moving my arms faster makes me faster. And I've had numerous athletes just in the last few weeks, from ones that went to swim camp and ones that have swum, like that. that I have found myself going a lot faster the more that I slow down. Again, not slowing down trying to be lazy, but slowing down in that if I can tell you to be purposeful and thoughtful with each stroke that you take, and each stroke is as close to perfect as your level of perfection is at the moment, and you can do it right, then most athletes in the water, especially, ones that picked it up later on in life, is you can probably go at 70% effort and be pretty close to 100% of your max speed ability. Sustainable. Because your form is great, right? So more efficient, less work. Body position is great. Again, more efficient, less work, right? Less resistance, and more oxygen. Like those are like the top three things that each athlete should always think about. Am I gaining oxygen, right, by doing what I'm doing? I'm not totally out of breath. And am I doing less work to go faster because my form, my technique, my body position is better and I'm not having to work so hard? Most triathletes that get in the swim, they want to swim hard and fast. Fast to them is how they move their body. Fast does not equal faster time. And it's just like master swimming. Doesn't mean they're masters, just means that we're all old. And so when you look at things to do in terms of swimming, one of the things I would encourage you to do is every time you go to the pool, definitely do a preset of a few things that you recognize. Obviously, I haven't seen you swim, so I couldn't tell you what exactly to do, but do a little bit of a preset to help get your body engaged. If anything, to just make you aware. Most triathletes, again, because they haven't swam, it's like feel for the water, don't have very good feel for the water and have just extremely poor overall body awareness of where they are in space in the water, because it's very challenging, is to do things to highlight and accentuate where your body is and know where it is. So when you start to pick up the pace, gradually do it so you can keep that form and stay there. And so, for an athlete who might be short on time, find those things, right? Do some things to highlight things and feel, right? Feeling on your forearm, feeling of high body positioning, play with your chin tucked or your head high, like all these things. Again, to me, it's never about getting better at drills, right? I'm not a huge drill fan. I do like to do a few things with all of our athletes to highlight a specific area that we now need to swim. Like I don't believe in doing, endless amounts of drills without applying it, because you're just getting better at drills. Like you need to be able to put it together a stroke. That's why I like doing 25 of a drill, whether it's sculling, whether it's fist drill, whether it's band work, whatever it is. And then doing the next 25 swim allows you to apply it and do it consistent. Or I love 75s because I do 25 drill, 25 drill, 25 swim, or 25 drill, 50 build, really feeling that pressure. But a lot of athletes, they should slow down. Yes, of course you can go faster if you move your arms faster. Some people, not all, but you're also going to feel like you went faster. And so a lot of athletes, I think, should work on, they talk about, running is like the only of the three sports where people talk about fartlek. Like you run really, really fast and you run really slow. I like to incorporate that in swimming as well, because it gives you an idea of the effort to hold a pace. And then, all right, well, if I'm moving my arms that much faster, I'm not getting any faster, I'm getting slower. Is it worth it? And if it's not worth it, how can I slow down what I'm doing? Again, not to go slower, because what you'll probably also find is, to me, the perfect long duration, long distance swim should feel like, for age group athletes, especially if they're like an hour swimmer or above for a full distance Ironman, or a 30-minute swimmer or slower at a 70.3, is your swim stroke should feel like a cycling big gear workout. So the first, you're taking not slower strokes, but your strokes are strong and purposeful. But when you start doing them in the water the first time, your arms fatigue quickly, right? Because you don't have the fitness to hold it. But it's super, you're like, man, this is super efficient. My heart rate is low. I'm going faster than I was before. I'm using a little bit less strokes. You still have that kick and speed where you can have a high turnover, but only if you need it, not because you have to have it or do it the entire hour and 50. And so to have that that upper body strength is is irreplaceable in open water swimming. So that's what I would do. Again, like it's very dependent on what your limiter is. And a lot of athletes swimming is like, watching someone swim is like looking at snowflakes and fingerprints. Everybody's got something that's very, very, very different. And there's also a different way to improve on it.
Mm. Yeah, I love everything you said there. As a guy who didn't swim as a youngster, I think a lot about how, people who swam when they're young are naturally more swim flexible. Like they have it's just like, if you grew up cycling, you just have sort of a more relaxed, ability, just, I guess, built in, naturally. So when I think about that kind of stuff, if you can't get to the pool a lot, because I think the way you build what I'm talking about is by swimming a lot, it's just like the process creates a little more flexibility and strength in that stroke. So, for me, it's like you said, bands, things like that. I think maybe just picking those things up while you're and just kind of working that mobility in your shoulders and things like that. I think that is a sweet, subtle way just to get better. And for me, it was always kind of like yoga, just doing more flexible strength, long muscle strengthen kind of thing. And then you can kind of incorporate that, what you were saying earlier. I mean, I've always sort of thought about the bike stroke as kind of like a swim stroke in a way. It's interesting you mentioned the big gear, because that's kind of how I've always thought about it, like that same sort of motion. You go over the top and then you're just kind of pulling back and you're just getting a big, powerful, consistent movement going on. And it is weird. And we talked about a few weeks or last week or something about how a lot of times you get in the pool and you're relaxed and you're not tense and you're not beat up yet. You just kind of cruise that first 100, and it's usually like right at one of your fastest 100 if you're not thinking about it. So it's sort of like that. And I just think if you're the more, sort of mobility you have in your upper body, because I think it's just natural that, when you're swimming for a long time, you start getting, tired, like you said, and whatever, but you just, everything gets a little more kind of crunchy and tight, and you're not as fluid. So for me, it's all about fluidity. And, you just watch these people, everybody goes to the pool and watches somebody in the next lane and like, holy fuck, they're not even trying.
Mm-hmm.
How do you get to that?
And the truth is they're not.
Exactly. It was like, make this sport easier.
Exactly. Like they are, but they have the technical skill to not, to feel better, and to do it more efficiently. And it's so
like leverage and that, leverage.
Yeah, it is.
Everything in the sport is leverage and torque and transfer of body weight and things like that. And everybody, like our tendency is to want to just be like, build up our arms so they're stronger than ever, or legs. And it's just like, it's just being about having an efficient body movement.
Mm. It's so funny you say leverage, because we've done enough swim camps and track camps together to know each other. But that was the athletes at the swim camp we did in the Woodlands. That was everyone's go-to answer, because I think I said it like 20 times in a presentation, and I like to ask like those open-ended questions, and they'd be like, leverage. Like there was, because yes, swimming is totally leverage. Running, leverage. Me standing backwards, cycling, it's all leverage, right? It's using all the hard work that we put in for good, and not for breaks. And it's like putting on the brakes, and it's swimming is one of those where you just have to. I did it today. I did on those like the 4, not the 4. It would have been nice to be 4. I've been out of the water quicker, but the 7,600 this morning, I got done on the very last one. I could feel myself getting slower. And not slower, and not like a lot slower, because I was swimming pretty even. Like, to give you an idea of like my splits today, how even they were. I did a 126, a 127, a 127, a 127, a 126, and then a 128. So my slowest one, my second to last one. And I could tell, and that's without form goggles. That's without looking at pace. I was just going by feel. So pretty much, again, 1 second difference between the first ones. And then I popped off when I got done this thing, I popped off a 128. And I was like, and it wasn't because my arms were definitely a little bit fatigued. And I could just feel, but what I asked myself was, are you getting fatigued? Or are you getting lazy with your, like, are you getting distracted? Because I knew I only had 2 more and I was almost done. And so I said, are you really getting like that tired, or are you just is your mind wandering and your form is going? Because a lot of times, like, really good form, again, going like we were talking about the guy in the water, really, really good form should be easy, right? You've done it so many times and it makes it easy. I said, you know what? I bet you're just getting fucking lazy. Your mind's wandering. I'm almost out of the pool. Now I gotta get dressed, gotta go home, work a little bit, do the podcast. And I was like, get your mind right. So I took my break, and then I did my last 100 or my last 600, and only wanted to focus on my head position and my high body position. Last 600, 125 pace, my fastest one. And I didn't feel as gassed. So again, it wasn't the fact that and so for 125 to 1T doesn't sound like a lot, but over the course of a 600, that's 16 seconds. That's a lot. That's about, that's a 25, but I was done. And again, it wasn't because I tried to go faster, I remembered that I was getting lazy with my technique, and just what I think a lot of swimmers do is you just swim to swim. You don't actually swim with a purpose. You just move your arms through water, which is not swimming. And that's why when you look at the most efficient swimmers and the best swimmers on the planet, every stroke and every turn of the wrist and extension is with a purpose. Everything. And they've done it so many times, it just sticks. They don't have to think about it. But that's why they're so fast. But again, a lot of times it comes back to paying attention. And am I just moving my arms through water, or am I actively trying to swim correctly? And I think a lot of athletes, could use a reset every so often in their swimming to start. Like, why are my times slower? Am I getting tired? Because again, and I didn't think about this, but now that you've kind of mentioned that, was I getting more tired? Probably. Because if my form was bad, I wasn't thinking about it, then I was taking more effort to go slower. So I was feeling fatigued because I wasn't being as efficient. So my effort level raised, and I was getting slower, which usually is a good sign of fatigue, but it wasn't. It was a sign of just me not paying attention to my form.
Yeah. Well, another reason to take a little rest in there and kind of think about that shit rather than always plowing ahead.
That should be a shirt. Think about that shit. We'll get to, we've had long-winded answers, and we got a lot of great questions below that. We'll wrap it up for today. But before we do that, we'll do a simple one from your boy, Andrew Specht. What is Mike's favorite cereal?
He knows that.
Yeah, what Nicole Steinberg and I were having a debate this weekend, and I thought it deserved to have a broader audience. I'm going to toss mine in the ring here, and I'm going to guess either Frosted Flakes or Honey Nut Cheerios.
Do you know how long it's been since I've ate cereal? Dude.
2 or 3 weeks?
No, it's been years. So, I'm surprised you don't know that, Andrew.
Like if you had to go to the store today.
Oh, wait, no, I take that back.
Pick up
it's like
you getting Kicks?
No. No, I hate Kicks, man. The aftertaste.
They're the worst aftertaste ever.
Oh my goodness, what is that stuff?
The Kicks aftertaste is like the smell on your clothing when you walk out of a Subway. It lingers with you for 48 hours. You smell like the bread in there for at least 2 days.
Wow.
Or Cracker Barrel.
Man, I am feeling like on the spot right now. I
mean, you're going to go Lucky Charms. You're going to go Rice Krispies. You're going to go chocolate, Rice Krispies. You're going to go Honeycombs. You're going to go Honey Smacks. You're going to go, what else you got out there? Reese's.
What, Mueslix?
You're gonna go Chex, the original Chex cereal.
I kind of like that. I mean, I had to pour like a whole container of sugar on that.
Oh, for sure, 100. That's what I did growing up, because we only got. And I'm sure my mom listened to this. She'll send me a text, but we only got like specialty cereals when we went on vacation.
Mm.
And so at home, it was straight up cornflakes. If we wanted cereal, we got cornflakes, which was fine. Because I just walked my happy ass over to the other side of the kitchen counter and dumped about 7 teaspoons of sugar.
Oh, I know it. Yeah.
The cornflakes. So they were 10 times worse than if I had just bought, Frosted Flakes.
Yeah, I used to do that with Wheaties.
Oh, yeah, same thing. But Chex cereal is very underrated.
Yeah, it's pretty solid. I what was the maybe like a Captain Crunch is probably if I had to go with.
Yeah,
one.
that's a solid one.
Yeah, Nicole, she's got a cereal blog.
Cereal blog?
Yeah, I think she's kind of famous in that world.
Oh, really? The cereal blog world?
Yeah, I don't know. She might be slacking on it though.
I just Googled it, and one of them's called Seriously.
Seriously?
Yeah, it's spelled seriously. That's fantastic. Ooh, they got Trix Loaded, Cinnamon Toast Crunch, Cocoa Puffs. This looks like I don't think this is her, but it's Mythical Mishmash is a cereal, I guess. That's a whole Gingerbread Toast Crunch. That's one I haven't heard of. But yeah, there's a lot of I guess there must be a pretty in-depth world. Cereal blog.
And I can already see it. I've been posting little questions at the top of these posts lately, and today I'll put "What's your favorite cereal?" and that'll get like 100 responses. Like the last week, it got like 2 or 3.
What's your heiress of the year? 2 answers. What's your favorite cereal? 300 breaks internet. I mean, that's like people are very passionate. We can same thing about what's your favorite flavor Pop-Tart.
Oh yeah, strawberry, 100%.
The old school. I actually had this conversation. Had this conversation last week? Old school strawberry, plain frosting, no sprinkles
with butter.
Is an all-timer.
A little butter on top for the melt.
It's an all-timer. And then now of the newer brands, it's cinnamon brown sugar.
Oh yeah. See, I like blueberry too.
Blueberry? I haven't tried blueberry. I used to also be a huge fan of the grape with plain frosting, no sprinkles.
I could see that, yeah.
But yeah, don't bring me the s'mores bullshit that people have now.
That's like those, the Cliff Bar. I mean, we need the old power bars back, man.
I mean, I still have some power bars in my teeth from 6 years ago. I mean,
those things were deadly, man.
Oh my gosh. Like, dude, I always joke with athletes, like when you like the Cliff Bars and those old school power bars that they've, for forever ago, you burn more calories chewing them than you did consuming them. So it was a net loss. I mean, it was a net, like they were so, I mean, I don't know how. And coincidentally, they had the strawberry flavored one was the only soft one. You got like cookies and cream. It was like trying to chew on a brick. You got nothing from it.
Well, that brings up my one of my theories, actually, that I think back in the day when you had those ones that were, you had to chew them.
You couldn't eat them so fast.
So now you're chewing and your saliva is starting to break down everything in the enzymes, and there's probably less GI issues back then. Now everybody's just pouring everything down their gullet without like putting any sauce on it.
That's actually not a bad thought.
I always chew my gels and my liquids.
You chew liquids?
Yeah, I mean, kind of like, chomp them. I don't like just slurp it down. I let it swirl in my mouth a little bit just to get some of the digestive enzymes on it.
Yeah, that.
Think about my GI issues over the last 10 years. Zero.
You have zero. Zero gut issues for sure, which is actually like, I mentioned that in the weekly email. I had a lot of athletes with gut issues this last week.
That's why.
And a lot of it, I think, is just traveling and making bad food choices.
Well,
but
not chewing.
That was like
Peter Brady said, chew it 22 times.
Yeah, that was the advice I used to give for handing out, like, fueling strategies between miles 20 and 35. The Ironman bike, start chewing on your power bar because it would take you 15 miles to fucking get through it.
Yeah,
so brutal. But yeah, who knows? Maybe I'll try to look up a few of those and see if I can probably find them on clearance. Like they're probably 3 years expired, but still perfectly fine.
Yeah, they're like those MRI. What are those things? Those army rations that last for fucking 25 years.
But I know what you're talking about.
MRE.
Same thing, like expired. I mean, that's it's like going to your parents' house when you're older, and you're like, "Do you got any this?" And you're like, "Yeah, let me look." Expired in 2001. And they're like, "Yeah, it's probably still fine."
Yeah, probably is.
And yeah, the fact is, it probably is. But that's it. Yeah. So give us a listen today, and more importantly, let us know your favorite cereal, and if you're passionate about it, let us know why. That is it. That's all we got for today. Hope you enjoyed that. We'll get to the rest of these questions on Thursday because there's a lot more to go through. We'll try to be a little bit quicker on Thursday to make sure we get through them all. But as always, we love you guys. We appreciate you. Head to our website, c26triathlon.com. It's our one-stop shop for all things coaching camps and communities. If you need anything from Mike, he is available at Mike@C26Triathlon. If you need anything from me specifically, I am at Robbie at C26Triathlon.com.
Yeah, maybe next week we'll do rapid fire. Or Thursday.
You mean Thursday? Ooh, like a 1 or 2 liner?
1 or 2 word.
Ooh. We can try. Unless it's about swimming, and I'll probably bail.
Yeah.
We'll see. We'll do whatever we can and whatever we need to do for the people.
All right. Sounds good, man.
All right, dude. See you Thursday.